Hello there. Welcome to Let's Talk About It. My name is Marquita Mansfield, and I am a licensed professional counselor. And we have a wonderful guest with us today. Her name is Cotina Stroud. She is with Serenity Counseling, and we're going to just go ahead and get right into it. Children and their communication and their relationships and all of that just as much as possible. So, for starters, when they're little, that's all they want to do is talk to you. They want to spend that intentional time with you. But as they get older and progress into their preteen, teenage years, and even early adulthood, it's like the communication becomes more challenging.
Yes.
Why do you think that's so?
Well, I mean, there probably are a variety of reasons, but for one thing, when they're young and innocent and curious, your word is everything to them. What you say is the truth. What you say is their only experience. Our children are like blank slates when they come to us, and I used to say blank CDs to my clients, and they'd say, Miss Tina, nobody listens to CDs anymore, but they're like blank CDs, and everything that their parents gives to them, the experiences, the knowledge, are the songs that are downloaded onto the CD. But when kids get a little older, around about 11 and up, they start having their own opinion. And, and if you have teenagers, you know that their opinion is the truth, not yours anymore. So the conversations and communication gets to be a little bit more challenging because they aren't just trusting what you say as much anymore. They have their own experiences, and they have peers who have given them information. And so now it's sort of like a challenge, my word versus your word. And, you can still have very productive communication and conversations with your teens. They're just a little bit more independent in their thinking.
Right. And I'm a mom of a teenager. Hi, Skylar. And these days, he went from, okay, Mommy, I did this at school today. This went this way. And now when he comes home, how was your day? Good. What did you eat today? Food. And I'm like, okay, give me more. So how can I get him, not just my teenager, but the other teenagers out there, how can we get them out of that mode?
I think it's somewhat like what we learned even in our counseling classes in school, is that we have to ask more open-ended questions. Like if we say, how was school, they're going to give us one word. So if we ask more questions like, tell me what you did in school today, maybe we can get a little bit more from them. Open-ended questions and allowing them to talk about what they want to talk about. Sometimes they don't really want to talk about school, so you ask from a different viewpoint, like, tell me about your friends, what are your friends doing? And I think when they are talking about what they want to talk about, we can't get them to stop talking. It's when we kind of introduce the conversation based on what we want to know. I believe, especially my teenage boys, they want to talk. They just want to talk about what they want to talk about, not necessarily what I'm asking them.
Exactly, and they seem to, as they're going through this process, they struggle with their identity. And within that process, us parents seem to get rejected. And it might be innocently, they're doing it from an innocent standpoint.
Absolutely.
But, as a parent, that can kind of be challenging, and they might struggle with that. So what are some good pointers that you can give to a parent who might be struggling with that process with a teenager?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Good.
I think we take things personally as parents. I am speaking to myself when I say this for sure. Anything that my child chooses over me, or if he wants to do if either one of them want to do something different, first of all, I encourage them to want to be very social, emotionally social, physically social with their friends. But sometimes on the back end of it, a parent feels like that's rejection. But I have learned to not take things personally, not to make assumptions, and not to take things personally as a parent. Unless my child specifically says, I hate you, which they never have and hopefully never will. Unless they say something specific to me, everything is an assumption I'm taking personally. So we want our children, it's a right of independence. We want our adolescents to sort of buck the system a little bit, or else you're going to have 40 and 50-year-old sons living in your basement. So you want them to be a little bit more independent. You want them to challenge and be free thinkers. And so I just don't take everything personally when they want to do something differently than they wanted to do when they were 6 and 7 years old.
Right. And you mentioned something, the whole I hate you component.
Yes.
Some teenagers, they do say stuff like that.
Yeah.
So would you say if they're so strong in that emotion, something like that would warrant maybe a therapy session or a few?
I do think and this is for any parent, I speak to my parents who come into the office, if you feel like your parenting struggles are such a challenge that you find yourself not able to handle them yourself emotionally, like you're responding in a way that's out of character, or you find yourself feeling remorse for however you're responding to your children's behavior or the words that they use, then I absolutely think some outside resources are beneficial. A school counselor, an independent practitioner that's a counselor, sometimes just other friends who have experienced the same things with their teenagers. I tell parents to use all of their resources because we are all like have an empty book and we're writing the words on the pages as we go along.
Right. So as a teenager, as they navigate through that adolescence process, what are some ways that a parent or anyone who's in their circle, what are some ways they can check in?
I feel like how we begin our relationship with our kids is how it sort of plays out into their teen years. Now, they're going to, like I said, exercise their independence, and sometimes we look at them and we're like, who in the world is this child in front of me? This is not the child that I raised. But if we keep open communication, matter of fact, if we model good communication skills in the relationships that we're in with the people that come to our home, with our own spouses, with our family members, with the general public when we're out at a restaurant, when we model good communication skills, our children see that. And I really feel like eventually they end up coming back in to communicate with us in that way. So as far as check-ins, I think that if we are open to how they respond to us, if we are open to what they say to us. For example, if my child gets in a situation where they're at a party and they're afraid to leave or they're afraid to get in a car with somebody who's been drinking, I don't want them to feel afraid to call me and say, people have been drinking and doing drugs at this party, please come and pick me up. So if we keep an open line of communication on the front end, it usually exists throughout the relationship. I try my best not to respond in such an aggressive way that my children never feel comfortable talking to me about sex, about drugs, about anything. That way, when they feel uncomfortable in situations, I am not the place where it's uncomfortable. I'm the person that they want to talk to, and that's how I keep a constant check-in on my children.
Right, and I know with me and my teenager, he grounds me at times because, and he puts me in check rather. Like, for example, he knows how mama is. I'm very reactive. I can be a little dramatic and, just kind of exaggerating with my responses. So one time he told me, well, mommy, I don't know. I'm going to be scared to just let you know when I'm in some type of relationship. And I was like, why? And then I had to check myself. Look at how I just reacted by asking him that why. Yeah. Well, look at what you just did, mommy. You're just going to be all over the place, and I just don't feel that I might be able to tell you how I would want to. Yeah. So he humbled me in a sense, and I'm learning as sure as everyone else is, who has a teenager. This is new to me, but I'm glad that he felt comfortable to let me know that much, to put me in check. Yes. So I was mindful of, okay, going into any type of situation, let me just check myself and just be careful with how I react, because otherwise he might pull back and be resistant altogether.
Absolutely. So. My boy's biggest fear, they say this to me all the time, is they don't want to tell me things about girls. Because mama, you know everybody, or everybody knows you, or are you going to put it on Facebook? And so I have to build trust with them to make sure that if they talk to me about little girls, if I see them, I won't say little girls because they're teenage boys now, but when I see them in public and it's a girl that they've talked to me about, I don't embarrass them. I don't do anything that's going to make them feel uncomfortable coming to talk to me at a later date about these particular people. So we teach people how to treat us. We tell our clients that all the time. You teach a person how to treat you. So if I want to have a good and open relationship with my boys, then I'm going to teach them how I want to be treated, and they're going to teach me how they want to be treated. And as long as we're, keeping an open line of communication, I really do believe, not that kids should be disrespectful and say anything to their parents, but I think gone are the days of do as I say, not as I do, shut up and don't say anything after I say, all of that. Our kids then have no one to, have those in-depth and detailed conversations, and then they end up having them with somebody on the outside who's going to give them not the information that maybe we would have given them.
Right, exactly. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on Let's Talk About It. Hello there, Marquita Mansfield with Let's Talk About It, and we are sitting here with Cotina Stroud from Serenity Counseling, and we're talking about relationships, the many dynamics of that. And a question, Cotina, I'd like to ask you is about why is it very important to be non-judgmental when it comes to teens and older adults navigating their way into different types of relationships?
So we exist, first of all, in a culture where our teens actually can get any information they want off of the web. They have smartphones, access to any type of technology where they can actually get answers to anything they want. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not those answers are accurate answers or the ones that we want them to get, that is a different story. And so I feel like as parents, when we have an open door policy where they can talk to us about anything and we can respond in a non-judgmental way, then we give our children an opportunity to feel comfortable talking to us about anything. Now, I have some experiences with working with families. I was working with a young woman, her mother, and she was 17 years old and started having maybe some questions about having a sexual relationship with a boyfriend that she had been seeing for quite some time. And she was very afraid to talk to her mother about it. And so I just suggested that she bring her mother into the session so we could talk about it together. But what I witnessed was that her mother just sort of flipped her lid, like went off when the conversation first started, and actually left the session and slammed the door. And the teen then said to me, see, this is why I don't talk to her about anything. And so when parents wonder why their children are hesitant to talk to them about certain things, they have to examine their own behavior when their children come to them. A judgmental, strict, not allowing for anything, you're going to be punished for everything sort of environment is going to lead to your teens not talking to you about anything that they're experiencing at this time.
So when a child is, or a teenager rather, when they're experiencing something like that with their parents being so reactive, like how do you build them up and empower them aside from their parent because they're not getting that support from there?
Yeah. And if I'm working with them in session, a lot of what we talk about is safe spaces. Who is your safe person to talk to? Sort of also examining the information that they bring to me in session. Like if they say, I learned this off of this site, then we talk a lot about that openly. Like, is this really the direction you want to go in? What about this site makes you want to, I guess, learn from this particular thing that you're reading or that you're seeing on this site? And so I really just empower them, and actually in session we make a list of their resources. Who are the people that you can talk to? Why is this person a safe person to talk to? And then I really still encourage parent and child relationship, and I still encourage them to invite their parent into the session. And if I have to have an individual session with parents, so I can explain to them, your child is not speaking to you because of this particular behavior. And sometimes it really just takes family sessions for us to get to a place where everybody's comfortable.
Do you see a fairly high success rate when you eventually get that parent in and help them take a look at their inner being as to how they're playing a role in their teenager's life?
Absolutely. Now, of course, there are going to be some people who are really stubborn, stuck in their ways. They're not allowing for certain things. They're not going to change the way they parent, and I understand that. My job is not to tell people what to do in the confines of their own home. But what I do express to them is, this is how far your relationship is going to get with your child. This is what your relationship is going to look like as long as you continue to be this way or you continue to respond in this way. Now, it means both people play a part. I also talk to the adolescents about being respectful and how they communicate to their parent. You can't expect unrealistic things of your parent. You can't say, I want to have company in my room with the door closed and locked, and that's, what I expect, from my parent. Realistic expectations on both ends help to create a realistic environment for both parent and child.
It's true. Control.
Yes.
Why is it very important to delegate control to your teenager?
Control as far as a parent, or control to the child?
Control as far as, just them just being in control of over whatever they're going through, how they navigate through different things, things of that sort.
Now, one thing that I do tell parents is, if you are, I call it helicopter parenting, or either puppeting your children. If you tell them everything, if you do things for them that they can do for themselves, if you don't give them an opportunity to gain independence in their thinking, then these children have no agency over their own body, which means other people will also be able to tell them how they think, tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing. If they don't experience or practice agency over their body, agency over their own answers, communicating in an independent way under your roof, then they get out of your house into college or other experiences, and somebody else tells them what to do without them ever feeling the strength of their own independence.
And even with that, why do you think it's important, on the flip side of control, why do you think it's important for that parent to provide that guidance and support along the way?
Well, of course, because I don't know how long ago you were a teenager, but it was a long, long time ago for me. But I still remember, if somebody gives me free reign, if someone had given me free reign to do anything, I probably wasn't going to come home until 5 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't going to eat what I needed to eat. It was going to be all junk food. I probably wasn't going to, do what I needed to do responsibly. So there still needs to be boundaries, and there still needs to be, some structure in parenting. You loosen it up a little as you get older so that your children can be independent and gain independence, but you don't take your hands completely off the reins and let them go free.
Oh, really? Not that easy,
No,
huh?
I wish.
Okay, so self-acceptance as it relates to healthy relationships. Let me just take a step further back with that. I'm trying to say. I'm struggling here a little bit. Okay. Where is it? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. We're gonna edit this. Okay. Anyway, healthy relationships. You hear about people saying, "Practice what you preach," in the home setting. What can you tell to the parents out there, if you're not practicing what you preach, how it defeats the purpose of everything?
Right. So I'm going to go back to what I said a little earlier here, that gone are the days of do as I say, not as I do, because children are watching. They're watching everything we do. They end up sounding just like their parents at a later age. What I've realized is that children, as they grow older, either are so opposed to the way they were parented that they parent differently, or they parent just the same as they were parented growing up. So as parents, we are the role models for effective communication. We are the role models for healthy relationship. My husband and I, there are things growing up that I didn't see, even though my parents are still married. They've been together for 44 years. I think they just celebrated their 44th anniversary, and they are wonderful parents. But they did not ever argue in front of us. We didn't see as much love and affection. Now they're all over each other, but which is kind of weird. But we didn't see a lot of that growing up, but my husband and I show affection towards one another in the home so that the children know that that's important and that it's healthy. We also have had disagreement and then worked it out in front of the children because they need to know that you can have a disagreement, and it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You can have an argument, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get a divorce. You can have these things. And so we role model effective communication. We role model love. We role model support. There are no real gender roles in our house, like mama stays at home and cooks and daddy does this. No, we help each other. It is a joint collaboration of love, support, and respect for one another, and that's what we model for our boys.
Wow, that's a great point. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back on Let's Talk About It. Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. Marquita Mansfield here, and we're sitting here with Serenity. I'm sorry. This is going to be the blooper. This is going to be the blooper one. Serenity Counseling. Well, she is Serenity Counseling.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I know. I'll get better with time. I'm so tickled at that. Hello, welcome back to Let's Talk About It. Marquita Mansfield here, and we are sitting here with Cotina Stroud. And we were talking about just the many dynamics of relationships and why it's very important to be mindful, parents rather, of how their children are as they go from little, adolescent, teenager, young adulthood. And we know that typically all these things that we talked about is typical. In any household, parents, they experience this as their child is getting older and older. But what would be some red flags to look for in something in that child who might need to seek counseling?
Well, you and I both know that counseling doesn't have to be an after effect. I mean,
Right.
an after choice. It's a proactive thing. You can put your children in therapy at any time, even if they
Right.
aren't experiencing any difficulties. It's just a good resource for our young children. However, if a parent is concerned about a sudden or dramatic change in their child's temperament, they realize that their child's more withdrawn, they're not maybe socializing the same way that they were. They seem to be, parents will often say, I think that they're possibly depressed, and, they can't really know until they get them in with a professional. But if their behavior has dramatically changed, or if they just see a sudden or sometimes not so sudden change in their grades have changed, how they socialize with their friends, they're spending a lot of time in their room more so than they ever did before, and some of that is typical. Teenagers just like to be
Right.
in their own space, but if they notice a dramatic difference between how their child was at one point and then suddenly they're a different way, and also I caution, because parents will feel like their children are dramatic or extra, or oh, they're just doing the most. If your child expresses that they don't feel like themselves, or they feel like they don't want to be here anymore, or they start to say those things that are concerning to parents, then by all means get them in with their general practitioner, who can evaluate and then refer to a therapist, or call directly to a counselor's office to have your child assessed.
Okay. And how easy or hard do you think it'll be for that parents get that child into therapy? We both know how.
Yes. Now there is, especially now, it is a good problem to have as a therapist that your phone rings on a regular basis. However, we know that just by nature of the culture that we live in right now under this pandemic, just, there are a lot of things that our young adults are facing that maybe we didn't have to face growing up. And so therapists are pretty packed, and they have a wait list. However, parents should be diligent and not give up on that, because there are so many therapists. There are so many resources that are available. Even in Calhoun County, there's a plethora of therapists. And so if they're having a difficult time finding one, they can even go to psychology.com and put in their area, and it will give you just a list of therapists between Calhoun County all the way up to Jefferson County that they can find, and especially because Psychology Today lists what each therapist specifically specializes in.
Right.
And so I just tell parents to be diligent in that. Start with their general practitioner, and their general practitioner usually has a list of therapists as well. Even if they don't have insurance, if they have Medicaid, or there's counselors that will provide pro bono services, but just to be very diligent and on top of that if they notice some concerns with their teenager.
Well, and really quick, can you tell them why it's important if you go to one therapist and they're not a good fit? Why not to give up on going to therapy altogether?
It's amazing to me too. I say this sometimes to my clients in therapy, how easy people will give up on a therapist. Oh, it didn't work out. But they'll try many other things. They'll try several different brands of a certain soft drink, or several different brands of Oreo cookie. And so it is about counselor and counselee fit. And sometimes that doesn't manifest in one session. But I would give them, I would encourage them to do at least 2 or 3 sessions before deciding to choose another therapist.
Right.
Also, your therapist is not your friend. So if you go into therapy and your therapist is saying something in opposition to what you're presenting with, or your child is presenting with, know that that may happen in therapy. That's the challenge of it. That's the, the growth in it. But not to give up just because one counseling or one counselor is not a good fit.
Right. Well, Cotina, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show.
I enjoyed it.
It's been a wealth of knowledge, this girl here. I'm just saying. Well, until next time, let's talk about it. We'll see you again soon.